Are you a red, white, and blue-blooded patriot? Do you not know what a kilometer is? Have you ever thought that if you were in charge of the American Revolution, instead of that bum George Washington, you could have kicked the British out of America by 1778? Now you can have your chance. In the new game, Ultimate General American Revolution, you play as the newly minted Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. This game was made by Game Labs, who also made Ultimate General Civil War, and this is the culmination of their work over the past 8 years since Ultimate General Civil War released. Off the bat, this game is incredible. I love it a lot. If that's all you're going to get from this video, I would say go ahead and buy it. You can wait till it drops on Steam in June, I believe, or you can go ahead and go straight to their website and buy a key. You have complete control over the Army and Navy in the New England States of America, much like Washington's real campaign. This game leans heavily on the real historical backdrop of the era, as many things are happening without you, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence, Congress using other measures to raise funds and weapons of war, trade deals with France and Spain, all that cool congressional stuff. This game does something very unique for the Ultimate General series and strategy games in general. You get to order your men and army around on the map in a top-down view and decide where to attack, where to station your men, when to fight, when to retreat, when to withdraw. Unlike the other Ultimate General games where your army is continuous, but you don't really get to decide the grand strategy of the war, it's just from battle to battle, your army is the same, you get to decide what battles are fought. The only historical battle that you fight in the game is Lexington and Concord, which, it isn't represented that well, sorry to nitpick, but in the game, it's like a somewhat massive battle that the Americans win. Meanwhile, in real life, it was more like a skirmish that the Americans won. Like, in-game, it's a bit of a slaughter fest for both sides, but in real life, there was like a combined 400 people killed, wounded, or captured. So, again, I'm nitpicking a little bit, but sorry, I love the American Revolution. I think that being able to control individual units around the map is really cool and allows a level of strategy that previous games just didn't allow you to have, because you get to decide how the American Revolution will be fought. In their previous game, like Ultimate General Civil War or Age of Sail, you don't really get to make decisions on a strategic level. It's really all tactical. Here's this battle. How am I going to maneuver my troops around? Meanwhile, in this game, it's much more strategic. Where should I station my army? Where should I decide this pitched battle is going to be fought? Should I try to bait the British to do this? This game really puts you in the mind of American leadership, because you have to worry about more than just winning battles. You have to worry about logistics, saving and making food for the winter, getting ammo, maintaining control of your territories. I think it's super great. I think the battles in this, they play about the same as the Ultimate General Civil War. The controls are really intuitive. I love being able to just draw lines and deploy troops how I want to. I've been playing a lot of Grand Tactician Civil War lately. Great game, by the way. You should check it out if you're interested in the Civil War at all. But it's nice to play a somewhat non-janky strategy game where deploying and actually fighting battles is fun. While there aren't some issues, like I think there are some bugs, there's some pathfinding stuff with troops, and then when you deploy your men in fortifications, it gets a bit wonky with like the musket range that your troops have, but I believe that stuff will all get ironed out as the game gets more and more out of early access. And unlike other games that they've made, your reputation plays a big part, because every single time you lose territory, you lose men, you're going to lose reputation. And of course, the opposite is true. When you gain territory and kill British, you gain reputation. If your reputation gets too low, you will lose the game and be replaced as Commander-in-Chief. So this is a bit of an abstraction of all the real-life politicking taking place during the Revolutionary War. Obviously, God rest all of their souls, obviously. Other generals wanted to take Washington's place, such as the very famous Charles Lee, which I don't know. You might have heard of him if you're interested in the American Revolution and history. Maybe you listen to Hamilton. I fucks with Hamilton. No hate, obviously. But obviously other generals wanted to take Washington's place, and he constantly had to be on guard and portray himself as an effective commander-in-chief. So your reputation is very important. If it gets below 15 for too long, you will be replaced and you will lose the campaign. It also helps you in other cases, but I'll get into that more later. So as I mentioned, taking care of logistics is very important. I think this game does a pretty good job of showing how difficult it is to run a revolution. You need to pay your men, constantly have enough weapons and cannons. You need to have enough officers to field more units and replace dead officers. You also need what the game calls lower officers. They represent like your sergeants and other NCOs that an effective army needs to function. You also have to make sure that your provision and ammo is stocked up. You also have to manage your army headquarters, which is where you can have other departments that eventually open up as you research them in game, such as like a chief artillery officer, quartermaster, chief intelligence officer. And they also get to research stuff, which makes your army better, unlocks new units, helps you with supplies, and you can use your reputation to speed up the research. Along with that is also managing construction and the resources that each province that you control makes. So you're going to have to build factories to be able to manufacture muskets. You have to make sure that you have enough farmland, that you're building mines, getting lumber, because you can also trade that to get more money. This is obviously a lot more involved than their other titles, and it also, again, effectively illustrates that you have to be very hands-on, that this is about a lot more than just battles. My very first playthrough of this game, I lost because I ran into a Valley Forge situation where I was just completely out of food. And when you run out of food, your men start to desert, you lose morale. So then it forced me to have to attack British positions to capture their towns and steal their provisions. But then, of course, they have low morale, so they lost, and my campaign ended. I thought it was really cool, mostly just because the first time I was playing, I don't know why it didn't occur to me to even think about winter coming up. But it was just cool to be put into a situation like that, because I just lost too many men attacking British positions, and then they counterattacked all of mine. The AI knew that my men couldn't sustain a defense, they were starving. And I love just seeing that, like, so many men were deserting because they were out of food. Because obviously that's what you would do if you've been starving for 3 months while your general sat on his ass. You also have to adjust the salary of the men to make sure that they maintain their morale. So the pay that you give them depends on how the war is going. If the war is going bad, you're going to have to pay them more to stay and join. And if the war is going good, you can decrease their salary a little bit and get more men to join. Which is cool. You can get more men to join because you pay a bounty for troops to join. But you can bump that number up to get more to join if you just lost a lot of men attacking New York or Boston or something of that effect where you need to recover manpower quickly. But then also if you're low on money, you can go ahead and set that number down to save it to just be able to pay the men that you have. You are really going to have to stockpile goods in this game. Mostly just to sell. You also need them because as your army grows, your deficit starts to grow and money just starts to disappear. Especially as you move on just beyond having militia units, because those are obviously a lot cheaper to maintain and have and recruit than having professional soldiers. Now, when the campaign starts, there is going to be, so many thousand British troops stationed in America. The thing that the difficulty really changes about this game is not too much of the AI, although I did notice on the easier difficulty they aren't quite as aggressive. It really determines how many reinforcements are going to be sent every couple of months as a reinforcement force. So they will naval invade your territory every couple of months to simulate reinforcements coming from Britain. So you have to make sure to keep your troops at the coastline and be prepared to fight them off. That's how the British Army grows in game. They don't recruit troops except through receiving reinforcements, and then sometimes there's special events. Like this game, it's pretty challenging. I think a lot more challenging than their other titles. I probably played through like 7 losing campaigns on normal difficulty before I really started getting the hang of it and, actually feeling somewhat competent at the game. Like, even at the normal difficulty, you have some bonuses given to you, and, it's pretty rough. Hard difficulty puts you on even footing with the British. Do not recommend. I was getting back shots. It was pretty rough. I think the AI in this game is pretty good. They know when to attack. They will capture towns where you don't have men stationed. They'll pursue your troops when you run away. It's honestly, I think it's pretty good. I've seen some complaints. I think it's pretty alright. But, I don't know. I'm not an AI expert. So the types of troops you can recruit and have all depend on your research level. At the start of the game, depending on the choices that you make, you will have 2 to 3 professional troops, and the rest of your army will be militia troops with just god-awful stats, but they're cheap and plentiful. And I thought this was cool. You can also open up recruitment to black troops who are even cheaper to recruit than regular militias. I thought it was cool because it does open up some alternative history. I mean, not really too much. In real life, obviously, Washington chose not to open up recruitment to black troops because he thought that it would upset the fragile balance and lower morale in the Continental Army. I'm not here to, armchair QB something that happened 300 years ago, but I thought it was cool that it gives you that option. All of your troops look different on the map and in battle depending on what type of troops they are, which I think is some nice detail. Like the professional troops and the redcoats, aka lobsterbacks, they line up and march in perfect order, and they line up in line formation to shoot, while your militia troops look more ragtag and are more spread out when they shoot. I just thought that was some really cool, attention to detail. It really doesn't add too much to the gameplay, but it definitely makes you feel more immersed. Along with fighting battles, as you know, like the other Ultimate General games, you can also have them kind of skirmish on the top-down view, which you move troops around, you can send them to attack, and you don't have to fight. They will just send volleys at each other, which is supposed to simulate a skirmish. I think that's really cool because it kind of opens up some, hit-and-run techniques. Guerrilla warfare really isn't represented well in this game. It's not as effective as it is in real life. You can't really just send a militia, send a couple of volleys, and then skirt off. You are going to take more losses than the British will. Which, again, it's really hard to sort of simulate guerrilla warfare unless the whole game is kind of built around that. I kind of hope they come up with something like that, but I do think it is kind of cool that you can. And then as well, if you do take control, the way that you have your men stationed on the map in the skirmish when you're moving them around is where they will be stationed when you take control of them and go into an actual battle. So you can kind of surround the troops on the top-down map view, and then you can actually play as that, and all of your troops will be surrounding their troops. I think the graphics in this game are pretty good. Some people complained that they thought it was a bit too cartoony, which, I mean a little bit. I think it obviously makes it easier for the developers to make the game if they're not focused on photorealism, especially since it's an RTS. I don't know, you're not really getting close-up of people's faces. I'm not too upset about the cartoonish art style, but if that thing really upsets you, this game might not be for you. I think all the art and the quotes on the loading screens are super cool. I think they look great. And they're also just dropping some hard quotes like this one by George Washington: "The fate of unborn millions will now depend, under God, on the courage and conduct of this army." Hard. That's hard. What a G, George Washington. But I just love all the loading screens. Really gets you in the mood. I think the audio is great. It's awesome to hear muskets shooting off a volley. It gives me chills just thinking about it. So I do want to talk about, I guess, the historical accuracy of this game. It's somewhat accurate. It kind of has some alternate history elements, I guess I'll call them, because in this game you can actually take Quebec and Montreal, unlike the real Continental Army, and they don't take any moral debuffs for actually moving out of America like they did in real life. Many militiamen were like, who the hell cares about Canada? I signed up to protect my home from the British. Why are we going to Canada? So obviously, this is not a replacement for a history book. They do have a lot of cool stuff, though. There's a lot of news and other events that really happened, like the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the Dunmore Proclamation declaring that black men will be given freedom if they sign up for the British Army. So you definitely do get a feel. Real historical events are happening, and they will tell you about them. I think that's really cool. Again, it's not entirely historically accurate. As I mentioned, guerrilla warfare was a much bigger thing in this warfare, especially for the American side, to help them win. That is not really accurately portrayed in the game. I can't believe I'm going to bring up the Patriot when I'm talking about historical accuracy, But if you watch that movie, you will notice that, they attack and then they retreat. They're setting up ambushes. They're stealing supplies and then leaving. Not really too much of that in this game. But, I mean, hey, you can't get everything you want. I think that this game definitely gives you a great feel for just how outmatched the American military was. But, I mean, again, this game is not a replacement for reading a history book. There's a million great YouTube videos you can watch, great history books you can read. Like, I actually just finished a narrative of a revolutionary soldier, some of the adventures, dangers, and sufferings of Joseph Plum Martin, which is an autobiography written by an actual soldier during the American Revolution. Definitely recommend checking it out. Definitely get a feel for what it was like to be just a regular soldier in the American Revolution. He's not worried about these great strategic things. He's just like, damn, this sucks. I wish I had some food. Definitely really cool. This game definitely does encourage you to learn more about it, and I recommend everybody does, even if you're not American. I mean, just a cool-ass conflict. Sorry for everybody who died in it. So, in this game, the casualty numbers are a lot higher than in real life. So, historically, on both sides, roughly like 50,000-ish soldiers died on both sides. That's including deaths by like disease and the terrible conditions in prison camps and barges. But in this game, I would think the casualty number is at a minimum doubled by like 1779, Like, I swear, in some of my campaigns, it's got to be like 250,000 people have died. I mean, it makes sense. There's going to be more big battles in-game than in real life just because it's a video game. It's supposed to feel fun. Not really cool to have battles be limited to like 2,000 versus 1,000. I do have a few criticisms of this game. As I've mentioned, I wish it was more possible to show guerrilla warfare. I wish that you could really steal supplies by ambushing supply trains or, attacking them and then retreating real quick. I mean, again, as I mentioned, you kind of can in game, but it's just not how it would really work in real life. You can't sneak up on them in the night. You could have your men hiding in a forest by a road, but the British are immediately going to see it. They're not just going to be marching. You can't really set up ambushes. Same with like naval warfare. I never really focus on it too much in game, just because, I'm not a big Navy guy, and obviously, Britannica rules the waves. They have a lot more ships than you. But I hate how when you send your ships out to go raid supply lines or whatever, the British Navy will immediately find your ships and make you wish that you never sent them out in the first place. They will just totally destroy you and find you immediately. But, I mean, again, it's a video game. I'm not really too upset about it. Another complaint is obviously the bugs. There's not too many. There's a couple times where the game crashes for just no apparent reason. Or generals or troops get like stuck on settlements or in battles. I've noticed there will be some slowdowns if it's like a massive engagement. But again, that's a bit to be expected. It is still in early access. So I would give this game like a 9 out of 10. I obviously have some biases. I am an American. You could probably tell that based off of how I'm talking. The American Revolution is one of my favorite historical events to learn about. A lot of my favorite historical figures are some of the founding fathers. Like, just in my room, I have the Constitution hanging up and a poster of Thomas Jefferson. So obviously, this game is right up my alley. I will be giving this a higher rating than someone who is just looking at it as a strategy game. But I just think it's a great game. I think it's a 9 out of 10. I think it's a perfect continuation of the Ultimate General formula. And I think it innovates a lot. Like, I just think that this style would be great. I could just imagine a Napoleonic War game set in this. Because just the movement of troops would be great. Like, I can imagine playing the 6-day campaign as Napoleon in this same game engine where you're able to strategically move around troops on a map and then choose when to fight battles, choose where to set them up. I think this is honestly one of my favorite strategy games I've ever played, and it's not even fully released yet. There only is the American campaign, which, I mean, Hey, I'm not complaining. I will probably not be playing the British campaign. Fuck the redcoats. I bleed red, white, and blue. But I definitely think it's a lot of fun. It's not out yet unless you're going to go to their website. You might just want to wait for the Steam. You might want to wait till some of the bugs get patched. But it's definitely a lot of fun in its current state. That's all I have to say. Let me know what you thought about it. If you've played, if you want to play. What some of your favorite moments of the American Revolution are. I'm always down to talk about that in the comments. That is all I got, and remember, Jesus loves you.